The Kaiserjäger military administration as the Tiroler Jäger-Regimenter or Tyrolean Rifle Regiments were formed in 1895 as 4 normal infantry regiments within the Common Army of Austria-Hungary. Despite the name Tyrol in its title, its members were not just recruited from the crown land of Tyrol but also from other parts of the monarchy. The regiments were disbanded in 1918 with the end of the k.u.k.monarchy. The word Jäger is a characteristic term used for light infantry or light infantrymen in German-speaking military context. Background: the first standing troops in the Tyrol were the native Tyrolese soldiers of the Tyrolean State Battalion formed in 1703. This was superseded in 1745 by the Tyrolean Field and State Regiment, which was given the status and prerogatives of an imperial regiment and went under the regimental number 46. Due to the political situation during the Napoleonic era, the regiment was permanently stationed in Veneto, still Austrian at that time, in 1801, which is why it lost its original name. As its successor in Tyrol, the 64th Tyrolean Rifles was established, based on a Tyrolean Rifle Corps and the battalion of Kaiserjäger. When Tyrol fell to the Kingdom of Bavaria in 1805, the name Tyrolean Rifles was withdrawn. After the return of Tyrol to the Austrian Empire in 1814, the reorganization of a Tyrolean Rifle Corps was immediately begun. Initially it consisted of 1 battalion, but was later expanded to 3. The inhaber of the rifles was Field Marshal Franz Philipp Fenner von Fennerberg, which resulted in the contemporary title of Kaiserjäger. Founding of the regiment. In spring 1815, Emperor Francis I directed the establishment of a Kaiserjäger regiment of 4 battalions and 16 companies. The formation of this regiment began on the 16th of January 1816. By contrast with the Jäger troops of Old Austria that were organized into independent Feldjäger battalions, this new regiment was the only Jäger regiment of the Empire of Austria until 1895, when the Great Regiment of Tyrolean Emperor Rifles, or Großen Regiments der Tiroler Kaiserjäger, was split up. The soldiers of this regiment, whose strength was 5,000 men, were recruited by state conscription, until the introduction of general conscription in 1868. The posts were determined by lot, and by the absorption of 1,400 men from the former Kaiserjäger Corps and of 600 Tyrolean soldiers who returned to the homeland after the end of the Napoleonic Wars. Initially conscription service was for 12 years. Later, this was reduced to 8 years and then 6 years, the pay of the soldiers being commensurate with length of service. Organizational changes. For 33 years the organization of the regiment remained unchanged until, in 1849, it was restructured into 6 battalions of 4 companies and 1 battalion of 6 companies. In 1859 an additional 8th Battalion was established. In 1863, another reorganization followed. From now on the regiment had 6 battalions, each of 6 companies, and a depot battalion, from which a 7th Battalion was supposed to be created in time of mobilization. After the introduction of general conscription in 1868, the regiment comprised 7 battalions, 7 reserve companies and a battalion recruiting cadre. In 1880 the regiment was brought up to a strength of 10 battalions by the allocation of disbanded Feldjäger battalions. By the 1st of May 1895, the strength had been further raised to 16 battalions by the allocation of soldiers from the Feldjäger Corps, and the regiment had been divided into 4 Jäger regiments, each of 4 battalions. The newly formed regiments were given the designation 1st Imperial and Royal Tyrolean Rifles, or Kaiserliches und Königliches 1, 2, 3, and 4. Tiroler Jäger-Regiment Kaiserjäger. The emperor himself was the regimental colonel, his second-in-command, and the commanding officers were personally appointed by him. Structure. On the 1st of May 1895, the 16 battalions of the Tirolean Jäger-Regiment were directed to form into 4 regiments that were set up as follows. 1st Rifles with its HQ, 2, 3 and IV battalions in Innsbruck, I battalion in Bregenz. 2nd Rifles with its HQ, I, 2 and IV battalions in Vienna, 3 battalion in Brixen. 3rd Rifles with its HQ, 3 and IV battalions in Trient, I battalion in Riefengartsee, 2 battalion in Refrate. 4th Rifles with its HQ, 2, 3 and IV battalions in Lyons, I battalion in Hall in Tyrol. As a result of the usually frequent moves of the garrisons in Austria-Hungary, the units were based in the following towns and cities of the 3 Tyrolean regions in August 1914. 1st Rifles HQ, I, 2 and IV battalions in Trient, 3 battalion and recruit battalion cadre in Innsbruck. Commanding Officer Colonel Guido Novak von Arienti. Field Officers: Lieutenant Colonel Paul Schließer, Major August Priendelsberger, Major Guido Blas, Major Emanuel Luprecht, Major Maximilian Ritter Barth von Barthenau, Major Friedrich Fossel. 2nd Rifles HQ, I and 2 battalions in Bozen, 3 battalion in Meran, IV battalion and recruit battalion cadre in Brixen. Commanding Officer Colonel Alexander Brosch von Arenau. Field Officers: Lieutenant Colonel Friedrich Kreschel-Edler von Wittigheim, Lieutenant Colonel Victor Freier von Schleinitz, Lieutenant Colonel Gerhard Scherer, Lieutenant Colonel Theodor Ritter von Zenick, Major Urbs de Vada, Major Johann Ritter von Bezard, Major Friedrich Graf Meriville Ucravelli. Feldkurat Karl Drexel. 3 Rifles HQ, 2, 3 and IV battalions in Refrate, I battalion and recruit battalion cadre in Trient, 1 company in Ala. Commanding Officer Colonel Heinrich von Bank. Field Officers: Lieutenant Colonel Johann Lurcher, Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Paletlovich, Major Ignaz Firmkranz, Major August Planisig, Major Franz Bauer, Major Karl Kobe. 4th Rifles HQ, 2, 3 and IV battalions in River, I battalion and recruit battalion cadre in Hall in Tyrol. Commanding Officer Colonel Ernst Dietrich. Field Officers: Colonel Ludwig Abendorf, Lieutenant Colonel Lorenz-Coven, Lieutenant Colonel Rudolf Ritter von Kriegshaber, Lieutenant Colonel August Fischer Wormsee, Major Karl Kreiner, Major Varius Graf, Laval Freier von Vrecourt. Operational Service: The Kaiserjäger saw operational service at the storming of Casino Fursada on the 23rd of February 1849, the attack on the village of Pregasina on the 16th of June 1848, the night battle at Volta on the 26th of June 1848, capture of a French cannon on the 4th of June 1859 during the Battle of Magenta, the storming of Oliosi on the 24th of June 1866, and the storming of the insurgents' position in Kremenak on the 21st of October 1878 during the occupation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. In addition to military combat operations, the Kaiserjäger were also involved in the expansion of military as well as civil infrastructure. They are reputed to have laid the Kaiserjäger Steigroad from Livico Term in the Sugana Valley in the 1870s and 1880s, that runs across the plateau of Luzon and the 7 communities and ends at Malga Monturovia. During the First World War, the 4 regiments fought with heavy losses, first in Galicia and the Carpathians against Russia, until they were deployed on the plateau of the 7 communities Trient and at Isonzo after the start of fighting on the Italian front. The orders shown in the illustration and handwritten notes of a Kaiserjäger sergeant bear witness to the operations of the unit during the First World War. This Kaiserjäger fought in Galicia, in the Carpathians, at Col di Lana, at Monte Piano, on the plateau of the Seven Communities, at Monte Pasubio, in the Sexten Dolomites, at Ortla on the Horschneid, at the Tonal Pass, at the Cima Presena, and at the Busazza. For that he was awarded the following honors: the Silver Medal for Bravery, First Class; the Silver Medal for Bravery, Second Class; the Bronze Medal for Bravery; the Karl Troop Cross; the Wound Medal for being wounded once; the Medal of Honor of the County of Tyrol to its defenders. The Kaiserjäger were not mountain troops, but regular infantry. These well-trained peacetime soldiers were regularly sacrificed during the campaign in Galicia and could not be replaced to the same extent. In the Gorlisten offensive, the 2nd Rifles lost almost 80% killed, wounded and missing. On 2 and 3 May 1915 alone they lost 26 officers and about 600 NCOs and men. The 4th Rifles lost 1,300 men over these 2 days. In the autumn of 1915, the Kaiserjäger and Landerschutzen were transferred to the Italian front in order to support the despairing Standschutzen militia and small numbers of regular forces defending Italian attacks and to assist in stabilizing the front. A high percentage of the Kaiserjäger were soldiers from Trieste. The rest were made up of the Tyroleans and inhabitants from the rest of the monarchy. Despite the many Italian-speaking Jäger, there were hardly any desertions in the fighting against the Kingdom of Italy, although it had been assumed in Italy that their brothers from the unconquered territories strive joyfully in the womb of the Mother Italia. All the greater was the disappointment when the men of Trentino showed no inclination to change sides. On the contrary, the following saying circulated among the Fantian Alpini in 1916. Doci Liberia degli Irredenti. Because of the possibility of unrest, the 2nd TJL was moved in 1916 with its garrison to Benešov in Bohemia. Dress: the uniforms of the Jaeger units were the same, except in minor details. A hat made of matte black, waterproof felt served as the parade headdress. It consisted of a crown and brim adorned with a circular, green cord, the Jaeger emblem and a plume of black rooster feathers. The hat cord was made of sheep's wool, and had a button and an acorn covered with the green wool. The 2 acorns were attached to the rear part of the crown. The cord for officers was made of black and gold thread. The crown was in the shape of an oval cone, with a moderately sized dent in the top. The brim was flat in front and behind, but turned up at both sides. The edge of the brim was edged with black lacquered calf skin. On the left-hand side of the crown was a rearward sloping pocket made of hat felt for attaching the feathers. The hat emblem, of gold-colored metal, consisted of the hunter's horn. In the center of the coil, the Kaiserjäger troops had the Tyrolean eagle made of nickel silver. This emblem was fastened above the hat feather pocket, such that the eagle was at the same angle as the plume. The plume was tied up in the form of a rooster tail on a 1.5 mm thick piece of iron wire. The length of the plume was 29 centimeters. The plume was inserted into the pocket on the hat, so that the feathers hung towards the rear in an arch. On the march, the Kaiserjäger wore the infantry field cap. The frock coat of the Jäger was, for officers and men, cut in the same style as the infantry. The other rank's coat was made of pike grey cloth and had grass-green epaulets, shoulder trim, collar and cuffs. The buttons for all regiments were yellow and marked with the battalion number. The shirts worn by the Rifles were of the same color as the jacket, with grass-green gorget patches to indicate their arm of service. The remaining items of dress were no different from those of the line infantry. Trousers were of pipe grey cloth and cut long in accordance with the regulations for German regiments. The trousers of the officers had grass-green lampasses, NCOs and other ranks had grass-green piping along the side seam. The Kaiserjäger were often confused with the Tirolean Kaiserschützen, who belonged to the k.u.k. Landwehr and were part of the regular armed forces of Austria-Hungary. The confusion arose from the decree of April 1917, in which Emperor Charles I granted the title Kaiserschützen to the Tyrolean state rifles ranks. One curiosity of the rifle troops was that the private soldier was called a Jäger, whereas the lowest NCO's rank was that of Unterjäger. Tradition. In order to maintain the tradition of the Jäger, in 2000 the annual officer cadet intake at the Theresian Military Academy in Vienna's Neustadt was given the title Kaiserjäger. In 2004, the 82 graduates of the course joined the Austrian armed forces as professional officers.